Well, Tony, do you want to give us the clap? That's your favorite part. Everyone watch Tony's face for this.
He gets so excited.
Ready?
Welcome to the Unlocked Podcast, starring Tony, Lars, and Chad. This is the Unlocked Podcast. Let's go, guys.
And with that, welcome back to the Unlocked Podcast. This is episode number 60, possibly the first of the year, maybe not. We don't know, but that's not why we get paid the big bucks. How'd that go?
It's going to be released sometime in 2026.
Ooh, excitement. Sometime in 2026. I wonder how New Year's Eve was for us. It was probably a blast.
Hey, Chad's a year older then.
Yeah.
We're all a year older.
Wow.
We look at that, Tony.
Wow, that's like a time transformation.
We do have a lot of birthdays coming up. So we're recording this in the first part of December. We're actually way ahead of schedule. So somebody should take note of that.
Don't let Lars know.
We will definitely implode our advanced recording schedule here in the next 2 or 3 weeks.
You are giving up a lot of the magic that happens behind the scenes here.
Oh, sorry about that.
But I guess on that note, episode 60, we have just had a beautiful New Year's, possibly. I don't know. I think we all had birthdays. And
hopefully.
I guess hopefully this is not your first episode listening to this because you have missed out. There are 59 previous episodes of absolute gold. Again, this is a podcast, but it's also a YouTube channel. So if you're listening to this and you're wondering why I'm stuttering through this introduction, Chad is holding a 4-foot wide photo that he's trying to cram in the screen for everyone to see.
Yeah.
Chad, do you want to explain what's going on here? Because I don't think you're really nailing it quite yet with what you're getting
I
at.
believe the folks that are watching on YouTube will appreciate it. But this was a gift that someone sent. Alex Berger from out in California sent us over as a thank you for helping him out with a few things. But it's the top 200 U.S. golf courses.
Why are you holding it so awkwardly?
Well, because it's
like you're cramming your little face. My God,
I'm trying to show the whole thing. It's really cool because it's got all the things pinned on here, and I've actually been to 2 of them. 2 of the top 200.
2 of 200.
Yeah.
Wow.
So, I mean, my percentage is low, but I've got a lot of room for improvement.
And you've taken a lot of swings. So you've probably hit 250 shots on that map already.
There's on one of those courses. There are a lot of Lock Dock logos floating around.
There. That's good advertisement.
So what else? There was some other good news that happened, right? You had some other milestones that have happened. You shared one the other day. Somebody listened. One of our top listeners.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
I got a screenshot from one of, I would say, one of my friends, longtime listener, I might add, works with us.
First time caller.
Yeah, but Rachel took a screenshot and said how proud she was. Yeah, I'm paraphrasing here, but how proud she was that we were her top
Paraphrasing.
podcast.
Noted.
Our top podcast listen. So, I mean, that makes 4.
I think the words that she chose was, "This is embarrassing for me," if I'm not mistaken.
I don't remember it saying that. I just remember her saying something about the content that I provided. Said, Lars, Chad, and the other guy. One of my favorites of that.
We should probably introduce ourselves because we also have got some other stuff to get through.
I was trying to get through this, but somebody was sticking a golf course map in the middle. So, Tony, if you need to go for a walk, you go ahead. We'll be with you in a sec. I know how mad you're getting because the banter is the worst part in the world for you. Hello, this is the Unlocked Podcast, episode 60. Today we are talking about spring cleaning. I am your host, Lars Johnson. To my left is from Minnesota, where they have no fun, and it's a lot of snow, Tony Hokinson, and Chad Lingefeld, North Carolina. Is that what you wanted, Tone?
That's what
that was better than what you did.
Yeah. I was talking to somebody yesterday. I was having a chat with somebody, and they're on the Culture Index profile. They're a craftsman. That may not mean a lot to anybody else, but this will be specifically directed to Tony. And the guy goes,
Beep, boop, boop, beep.
he
Upload
said,
complete.
He said, I don't like to read novels. Like, just get me directly to the point. I don't need the storytelling and all this stuff. Just he said he didn't like to read the Patrick Lencioni books because he doesn't like the fable side. And he was like, just get me to the details and the facts. And I said, that's very craftsman of you.
Shockingly, I love Patrick Lencioni and love the stories because he tells good ones. Lars, not so much.
Oh, the other guy.
Well, the good news is it is episode 60. We've been doing this for over a year, and I got a little controversy for you guys here. Today. Tony, I'm getting to the topic here.
Hold on a second before we get to the topic. We need to read some of our YouTube comments because if you go to our YouTube channel, we definitely appreciate anybody that leaves comments for us. But Adam Smith said he was referred to the podcast by a fellow locksmith business owner, and he's loving it. I must say I started listening to the audio a few days ago and just looked you all up on the video. Your actual faces look nothing like I pictured you in my mind from the audio only. I pictured Lars as an old fart, which is in fact the case. But anyways, an old fart, but not so much. I may have many friends.
Excuse you?
Yeah.
Adam?
So
was that his name? Adam?
Adam. So that just made my day when I read this one.
Adam is my new favorite person.
Yeah.
It'd be a crusty old fart. Well, Adam, I got news for you. I hope you're watching this.
But the good thing is, I mean, the factual statement is Lars is the oldest one of the group.
That's true.
So he is an old fart in the group.
By far.
Another one.
That reminds me of the time that Ben called me and said, you're going to be golfing with this guy named Lars. And I was like, I'm going to be golfing with some old dude. And I showed up at the course and it was him. And I'm like, that's not what I was expecting at all.
So just
expecting someone far more pleasant, but also far more boring. And I got not boring, but not pleasant. So,
what
it is what it is.
What you mean is you're welcome.
Shockingly, he was a far better golfer than I anticipated as well. So,
David from Redford Lock said, love the podcast, gentlemen. Thanks for taking the time to share knowledge with us. This one, we do need to read it, but it says, Mr. Lars is a gem.
I appreciate that.
Total of a great mentor. Helps juniors and employees love and support him from India. Working with him for many years, and he's always here to help and guide. Thank you for starting the channel. It will help. It'll help listening to him more as he is very busy and occupied as a boss. So somebody, one of your employees gave you a nice compliment. So
well, that's probably Nitesh, who's our mobile developer. Actually, he's the one that is responsible for developing all of our mobile applications and technology.
And Michael
he's a
Hansen,
tremendous liar.
Michael Hansen also complimented the hair. He said the hair is incredible. I'm assuming that he's talking about Lars's hair.
Obvious.
Yeah. But anyway, so thank you for the comments. This is a blast. So if you're listening to this or watching this on YouTube, leave a comment below, and maybe we'll read yours on the next episode if we remember to log in and look at them.
On that topic, I was going to say this at the end, but we have talked before about potentially in the future doing a form of like a Q&A episode. If people do have questions they would like to ask us, start posting them in either our blog comments or our YouTube comments. If we get enough of those at some point in this year, we'd like to.
I think they should just probably text them to you. Let's just give your phone number out on the podcast real quick, and they can just text them to you.
I really wouldn't mind that. So,
okay.
Comments would be better, but we were thinking throwing on the idea of doing a Q&A episode. So if people have comments that they'd like to have us answer, start throwing those in there, and we'll see what sort of traction we get on that. So,
we'll probably be flooded, so we should warm Amazon.
This is why I'm
AWS.
We'll issue this reminder a couple times until we get enough.
Make
Q&A
sure we have enough bandwidth for that flood of comments from the hordes of listeners.
All right.
Okay.
So
any
on that
other
note,
announcements?
No, I
Or
think
do you
we're
want to
good.
get into this because you guys are going to be annoyed by this?
In fairness, we
And-
have still yet to introduce who we are.
No, I introduced you in the most boring way possible, just so
that's
it was
fair.
on brand.
Perfect. Move on.
Good. So this is a topic that is, we're probably all in the new year, and we're probably in that mode where we're setting goals and we're thinking about the future and strategic planning and that kind of mindset. So this, I thought, was a relevant topic, but it's going to be a controversial one, and it's the probably counterintuitive to most of us. But any management book you read nowadays is going to tell you that long-term employees, tenured employees, people that have been with the company for a long period of time, bring so much value. And generally speaking, the feeling you would get is companies with high turnover are either poorly managed or there's something wrong with them or there's something rotten. I also think that people or companies that have that higher turnover don't stagnate as fast. I think there is a direct correlation between long-term employees and stagnation in the company. So that is counter the typical management advice. And I'm wondering, our long-term, here's like, I got a little catchphrase for it. Are long-term employees the backbone of a successful business, or are they a reason the company gets stuck in the mud? So insert the sound effect there. Boom, boom, boom.
So my question out of the gate is, and this may not be a scenario that you've already added in here, but are you assuming that long-term employees are not high performers?
I don't think that's an assumption. No, I think there's probably a correlation between long-term employees and figuring out naturally how to conserve energy, if you go back to biology and go in that. But really, in a nutshell, what we're talking about is they can get their job done with the least amount of effort. That's the goal of everyone, I think.
So I know you're not going to like this answer. You're going to actually hate it, which is why I like it.
Says it depends.
No, I think they're both. I think it's too general of a statement, and I know this is why you're going to hate this answer, because you're going to think I'm thinking too literal. But I think they can be the backbone of the business, but they also can be the reasons they get stuck in the mud. And I think it has nothing to do with them being long term. I mean, them being long term brings value because they have experience, and that experience can then bring you value. But if them being long term stops them from being innovative, it absolutely can get you stuck in the mud. And I think it's important to weight experience as a part of the equation, but not the end all be all. I think that you have to focus on what's important to your business. And if one of those things is innovation and growth and ever improving, you have to make sure that those long-term employees are also doing that. And so yeah, I guess I think they can be both. I think there's something to be mindful of because I think, like you said, a lot of people can look for the same thing and do it repeatedly and not be growth oriented. And if that doesn't match with your company's vision, you have to be mindful of that, and you have to coach them around that. And it's important to be aware of. Because otherwise,
I'm not suggesting this is dichotomous. It's not A or B. They're not, or A or B mutually exclusive. So yeah, I'm probably sure it is somewhere in the middle. It's just, I guess.
Are you kind of saying that just being comfortable with the fact that an employee has been around for a long time, regardless of if they're a high performer or a low performer, it's just their tenure?
What I'm implying is if you are sitting there and you say, I've had, 10 staff and they've all been here for 10 plus years, I would probably say that your company lacks innovation and likely is just spinning, and then you're struggling and you can't figure out why you're not growing.
Do you think Chad's company is innovative?
I think parts of, certainly, yes.
Okay. Because I think he has about 10 staff that have been with him for 10 years.
Right. And how many staff does he have? 70? 60? 50?
Right, but that's the same core 10 staff that he started with.
Okay.
I mean, his leadership
core,
team
but it's not everyone is the point I was making. I look at some of the big companies. You look in our industry. Okay, there's one manufacturer I like to pick on all the time just because. But, one of their, points of pride is how long they're tenured employees. They've been there forever.
Yep.
I would also suggest that it's one of the most, this is the way we've always done it type of companies. And I'm challenging, is that directly correlated? We can get into how to get around that and keep your company innovative, and we'll get into that. But where I'm at right now is I'm not sure it's a bad thing to have turnover reasonably consistently.
So I think, go ahead, Tony.
I get where you're going with it. I think your answer to the problem is the easy solution of, I want to drive innovation, therefore I'm going to bring in fresh set of eyes on things every couple of years. And sure, that solves the problem, but I think it's the easy way to solve the problem. Like, I think, again, it's not the wrong way, but it is, I think, I don't think the reason for the lack of innovation is tenured employees. I think the reason for lack of innovation is a lack of focus on innovation, and it happens to lead to people that are stuck.
Do you think there is a correlation between people that have been doing the same thing for a long period of time and stagnation?
Yes, I think there's a correlation, but I don't believe it's causation.
Yeah, I my big challenge with this kind of theory is, agreed, if they are mediocre performers and they are tenured employees, it will lead to stagnation. Right. But I do believe that you can have high-performing, long-tenured employees, which would fight against stagnation.
Yeah.
So it's less of the tenure and more of the the performance,
or the type of person.
Sure.
Well, but I think
performance and fit. I mean,
well, would you guys admit that you are probably less innovative and cutting edge and energetic today than you were 10 years ago?
That's a bold statement.
I think it's less about innovation, and it's more about how, when you're doing the same thing repeatedly, you start to lose the outside perspective. So, for example, we've brought in a couple members to our leadership team from the outside in the last 3 years. And there's been a couple instances in the last 5 years that this has happened. And every time we bring someone in that hasn't been in our culture, they always offer a new perspective on things that's refreshing, and that you think of it does spark innovation. But I don't think it's because of the tenure as much as it is the difference in perspective, right? You're coming in from the outside world, quote unquote, and you're like, oh, this is kind of goofy. Why are you guys doing it this way? So it does offer a new perspective. So I do buy into, like, it's important to bring in new people to get that new perspective. But I don't think that necessarily means that you should be spring cleaning the tenured employees. I think
I'm not saying that. I'm not saying spring clean the tenured employees, but turnover, by and large, in our industry or in business in general, turnover is bad. It's a sign of a bad manager or a bad company or a bad something. Yeah. It's bad. That is the general consensus. And I'm saying, I don't think I agree with that. I think some level, I'm not sure how much, but some level of that is good to get in those new ideas, new faces.
But so here would be my question on that is there a different way? So if you were to say, like, okay, there is a direct correlation between long-term tenured, stagnant, mediocre performance employees, and the company is also become stagnant because the owner and leader has also become stagnant and comfortable. Like, there's a lot of elements there, right?
Sure.
Because I don't think that a growing and developing leader would allow for mediocrity over tenure. Like, that's just to say that the leader is also okay with mediocrity.
Well, and so I'd then ask you, if you had to sample, say, 100 small businesses, of that 100, how many, you just talked about, like, a really strong growth oriented kind of futuristic leader. Of those 100 companies, how many leaders do you think fit that build?
Oh, it's probably a very small minority, less than a few percentage points. because they probably have tapped themselves out at some point, for sure.
Right.
I
Well, and
would
I think-
agree with that.
And I would argue that the three of us probably have too. Maybe not to the extent, but
Yeah.
I mean,
Well,
it's,
and that's why where I was headed with it is. So then, what is the fix to that? Because if the leader has become stagnant, is become kind of stale, what do you do to change that? It's most likely because you've kind of gotten stuck in your own fishbowl.
Great.
yeah, and you're comfortable, right? You've probably things are starting to go well, and you've kind of figured it out. And there's a good portion of us that get started up, and there's we probably got to pay down some debt. We have to figure our way out. We have to battle for everything. And then, when it starts finally working, that might be 5, 10, 15, 20 years down the road, it's kind of like a relief. Huh.
Mm-hmm.
So it's, I'm not buying the turnover is bad scenario. And I would challenge anyone listening to really think about it. If you have low turnover, if you have high turnover, okay, that probably says something. But if you have low turnover, it probably also says something.
I understand I understand where you're coming from and the origin of it, but I'm not going to agree with the black and white philosophy there, because I do agree. There is a comfortable level of turnover that is good, but to your earlier point, high turnover is typically directly back to bad management or bad selection, bad hiring. Practices,
it's bad
whatever,
something.
right?
Yes,
I think a better way to say that is that some turnover is not necessarily a bad thing. Like I think back to what you're saying, Chad, is a lot of times a lack of innovation is due to a low performing individual. So if you're turning over a low performing individual, that is a good thing.
Mm-hmm.
If you're turning over somebody who is not being innovative and is not a fit of your culture, that is a good thing. So
yeah. Well,
low turnover is not always a good thing, but it is not.
I would also add this in, Lars. I think that there are sometimes, and I'm sure. How do you go in and validate?
Well articulated, Jess.
Yeah, no, I'm processing 4 different things at the same time. It's how do you provide or institute a level of checks and balances in your organization? Because I would also interject that there could be, and we've talked about this before, some employees that block innovation because they're either comfortable in their position or they sense it as some sort of self-preservation act. Like if we implement this, then this might change my job or eliminate my job or whatever, or change my job. And I like what I'm doing, and I like this, and I like this control, right? And so then they would maybe prevent or protect against growth and innovation.
Yeah,
there's that. But there's got to be elements in there to have checks and balances.
In our industry, what percentage of people do you think is it? Are of that we're comfortable, we don't like risk, we don't like change.
Very high.
Yeah,
I would in our industry, absolutely
very high. Yeah,
which then leads to stagnation, which I believe is part of the challenge that we are fighting as business owners. And I was looking at the turnover in our company, and there have been a handful that, it's too bad, we've moved on. There's also a handful that, I said, I guess where this comes from is I was having a conversation with one of our guys specifically, and they were saying, this department has had a lot of turnover.
Sure. And they saw it as a negative.
Yeah. And they're like, our turnover is whatever percentage. And I don't remember, because I think we talked about this offline, whatever the percentage was. Because I was looking at this because I took it personal. It's like, I'm doing a bad job as a owner, leader, manager, whatever you want to call it, because I have high, or the feeling in the company, or at least from this one individual, was there's high turnover. And then I looked at it and I was like, well, I'm not sure it's necessarily a bad thing. Because, the most common thing in corporate America is, well, you hire a consultant, you pay McKinsey, or you pay Deloitte, or you pay one of these big KPMG. They come in, you give them $200,000, and they say, yeah, you've got to make these changes. right? Because you want a fresh perspective to come in.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm looking at it as, instead of doing that, there's got to be some turnover. And I'm just saying that the turnover is not necessarily a bad thing. And if you don't have any, I think that's almost equally as bad. So
that's the part that I am hung up on. I don't want to, I tend to not agree with high turnover is not a bad thing. I think high turnover is a bad thing.
Well, I'm not saying necessarily high. I'm not saying high turnover. I'm saying
instances, high turnover can be a good thing. If you realize you have the wrong people in the wrong seat and you need to make a cultural shift, it is then a good thing. If you continually have high turnover, that is a bad thing.
Yeah, and let me verify that or validate that. High turnover is not, you could say it's probably not a bad thing, but unless you understand the reason that you have high turnover,
that's
because
fair.
The reason for high turnover is probably more of the question mark and not less of the turnover percentage.
Mm-hmm.
Because if it's due to either bad hiring practices, that's an opportunity for improvement. If it's due to bad management, that's an opportunity for a new manager. Like, there's a lot of and I would say that I've seen in our organization at times when turnover happens, somebody new comes in with a new perspective, and that particular team, that particular department, whatever, propels to the next level.
Mm-hmm.
That I would never fight you on or disagree on. But I also, if I unpack that and uncover that a little bit, it's mostly because that person that was in the previous role was not fit for that role or was not in the right seat. And that points back to leadership.
Mm-hmm.
And I would say, if you really want to peel some layers of the onion, I think it has a lot to do with a leader or a manager not wanting to make the necessary changes because they're too comfortable. So if I have to move Lars out of this position into this position, then that means I got to find somebody to fill his blah, 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 blah. That seems like too much work for me. So we'll just leave it as is. And that is never a good thing.
Yeah. Well, so, to bring this back kind of to our industry, obviously everyone and their dog is talking about AI.
Oh boy.
AI this, AI that, AI is going to be blah, 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 whatever. But, I think we're all going to agree that there is going to be a play for AI somewhere in our industry doing something. What scale and how quick, and we don't know. But I don't think it's going to be a flash in the pan type of technology. This isn't the metaverse that, was very hip and cool for 20 minutes. This is going to be like, I think, closer to the internet, where it is going to be revolutionary in our industry. Now, how many companies, small business specifically, are going to be in a position to utilize that technology? How many of our peers and colleagues are going to be ready to jump in and learn how to utilize AI in their companies? Do you foresee this happening?
In our industry?
In our industry.
Low.
Very, very, very low.
So what happens? Where does this leave us? We have companies with, it's good. You don't want any turnover. Okay, now we're going to have this, I believe, a revolutionary technology coming in. How is where is this going to take us here?
The technology or avoiding it?
Well, I mean, how are we as an industry going to move forward when our industry specifically, where long tenured employees are what drives?
But I mean, I agree with. I guess I'm tracking with what you're saying there in figuring out how does an organization inject fresh ideas and fresh concepts while being kind of stable and consistent. like how are you going to invest in? You talk about AI. You talk years ago. The hot topic was get those young kids in to do social media because you need social media, right? And so this AI is kind of that same kind of conversation. Is how are you going to get folks in that are passionate and engage with it and figure out how to implement it? And it doesn't necessarily have to be the young folks. It's people. So when I look at our organization from an AI perspective, we have a mixed adoption rate on it, and it's not. It's either fixed or growth mindset individuals. It's people that are concerned about self-preservation. If I utilize this tool, is this going to take away my job or in some way impact my job? And then you have some folks that just don't understand it and don't have the desire to understand it. So they're never going to try to implement it. So I can see at that point, okay, we hire a new individual that comes in and says, your entire role is figure out how you can find areas of our business for AI to impact. And yeah, it would cause some disruption because it's somebody new with fresh ideas that is not married to the ancient idea of we've always done it this way. They're going to come in and kind of question every process and can it be done a little bit different? And I think that's really the hindrance is, do you have somebody in your organization that is willing to question the sacred processes that you have? If you don't, how do you hire those people in so that you can continue to have challenging on sacred processes?
And that's the next direction here is, I think Eric Chad is one of the people, I have a good laugh because he's like, well, sounds risky. And I was having a chat with him at Brevo and, it's calculated risk, and let's not rock the boat too much. But, I think the statement I used when I met him, and I guess I should make reference. What does he do in your organization?
He's one of our account managers.
Okay. Right. So he sales, but he was one of the guys that said, he's drinking the Kool-Aid. He's drinking the LockDoc Kool-Aid. He thinks of LockDoc as an extended, arm of himself. And it's, you can tell the amount of pride that he has in his job. And, he was, I wouldn't say he was being like super innovative and, trying to blow up the wheel, but he was certainly interested in what's next and how to expand that.
Yeah.
Right. Now, is that learned or is that a person? And if that is the person, how did you find it? How do you find people like that? And how do you build your culture to move towards that?
Yeah. Is that a question or is that a
well, I think that's
rhetorical?
The next. No, it's not rhetorical because I think if you want to just poke Tony and wake him up here, because what I'm really wondering is where do we go next?
When Lars is talking.
Where do you go next? How do you find those people? How do you interject? The way I would say it is, how do you identify that
how do you
type
prevent
of
stagnancy in your company?
Yep. And then how do you sprinkle those people inside of the different departments and inside of your organization, because they can drive change, they can drive innovation, they can drive challenging the sacred.
Yeah. So how do you find these people? Do you have any of those people in your organizations? What are the characteristics? Where did you find them?
Yes. So I want to maybe hold that and then jump to another real quick kind of topic. I got an email earlier from my business coach, Kurt Graves, and he was talking about, he said he's been doing a lot of coaching sessions, and people are asking, it's hard to find, or using the topic, it's hard to find good people. Right? This is a topic that we've been down before. And this is a statement that he put in here, is CEOs get the teams they deserve. So how do you find innovative? How do you find people that are looking to disrupt things? How do you find people that are willing to question the norm or the sacred? Is you have to embrace it. And so I would go back to what you were saying earlier. A lot of the leaders inside of organizations, inside of our industry, are not comfortable with those things. They're not comfortable with challenging the status quo. They're not comfortable with innovation and disruption. So therefore, they're not going to attract or hire people that are also comfortable with that. Because CEOs get the teams that they deserve.
Yeah, you have to foster innovation yourself, and you have to push people to be innovative. And at the end of the day, I think if you're innovative, people who are not innovative will not want to work with you because they will get annoyed at you innovating.
Because you're constantly squashing their innovation and their telling them.
Yeah, like I know, Chad, I think one of your core values is continuous improvement or something like that. I know every Wi-Fi password in your building is something about always improving or something. I don't know. Anyways,
Wi-Fi passwords.
Well, I didn't share the numbers. But like you have to be fostering that. And if you're fostering that as the CEO, you're going to, if someone doesn't like to be, I guess what I'm trying to say very poorly here is if you're someone who likes doing the same thing repeatedly, you are going to hate working for Chad and you're not going to last because you're going to self-select. So I think what you have to build that culture of continuous improvement if that's something you want to prioritize.
Does it have to be one or the other? If people like doing the same thing over and over again, are they going to work in that industry, or are they going to work for?
Yeah, I think that they wouldn't work directly with me. They would they would find there's in that to kind of. I mean, I'm tracking with what Tony is saying, but there are a handful of people that I work directly with day in and day out, and those are people that are. There's a lot of innovative thought process around it because that is something that I thrive in. That's something that I enjoy. And early on in my career, I ran people off unintentionally that enjoyed consistency and predictability because that is none of the things that I am. And so but we do have departments inside of our organization that are really much more focused on consistency and predictability and repeatability and all those types of things. And they have management and they have leadership and they thrive. I come in as from a chaos perspective and change things up, and it's not always fun for everybody. So to Tony's point, somebody that's that way is probably not going to work directly with me for a long period of time, but there's roles in our organization that would definitely fit that.
Yeah, because I don't think any of us are saying that, you need everyone to be innovative, cutting edge, fight the norm, chaos,
because nothing's getting done.
There's a lot of, I'm going to make a reference. I don't remember where it came from, but the superstars and the rock stars, the rock stars they're not radical the flashy candor. People. Is that radical candor?
Yeah.
Is it? So it's not, not everyone has to be on the stage flapping their arms around doing that thing. But there are a lot of people that are, consistent and show up every day and get work done and are very good. They're just not very flashy. And those are your rocks, right? Yeah. And those are the people that, generally speaking, are the foundation of the organization. They're going to be those kind of 10 people, as I think Tony referenced earlier, the 10 people that kind of run everything. But if you have a full company full of those rock stars, I think you're going to be lagging in the innovation side. Whereas the flip side is if you have people that, are chaos, if it's all those type of people, you're also going to have the same qualms and issues of you're not going to get anything done. So correct. Finding that mix is probably somewhere in the middle. And to inject that, it's a time, again, it's beginning of the year, it's maybe to have an evaluation of your organization. So.
Yeah, I think as a business owner, to draw slightly on Culture Index, there's a trait of ingenuity, right? Creative problem solving. You have to, as a business owner, either have a certain level of ingenuity yourself or have someone you are working incredibly close with that has that ingenuity, and one of you two has to be fostering that innovation. And if you're hoping to grow your business and building that culture of continuous improvement, and like you said, you don't want it to be everybody, but you have to have someone that's kind of championing that and building that into your culture if growth is something you're looking for. And I get what you're saying. You want to, having some slight turnover is not a bad thing because it might breathe new life into your business. I don't think that's the end all be all, but it certainly can help spark some innovation.
Mm-hmm.
So.
And above all, I think if you're sitting in a business, again, controversial here, but if you're sitting in a business and you've had your entire staff for, 7+ years, I would challenge you into thinking that your business is probably pretty stagnant. Maybe not, but it'd be a bit of an indication for me.
Yeah.
So I see.
I think
Chad,
there's certainly a high correlation. I'm not disagreeing with that. I don't think it's a causation, but it is definitely highly correlated.
Chad, you're doing some research, I think.
I was deep diving into some culture index stuff.
Yeah.
I was trying to understand a little bit of some of what that driver is. Obviously from a consistency standpoint versus a kind of challenging the norm, or the folks that have high level of ingenuity, trying to think about things differently. And there's definitely a lot of correlation to understanding how the human is wired, where it's going to bring that in. So
high autonomy, low conformity is going to be that type of.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, this is, I've got a couple blank stares at me at the moment. So I don't know if we're pondering or we're.
Well, I think there's a lot to think about with it, but it's also like from an application standpoint. So a quick assessment. So, when we have these conversations, like how do I put myself, if I'm a listener and I'm driving down the road listening to this
viewer, yep,
or a watcher watching this episode, going, okay, so how does this apply to my business? So, like, what kind of assessment would I do if I'm listening to this and I'm processing? Okay, one, do I want my company to be innovative? Do I want it to be stagnant? Like, where are we at? That's number one. And then two, how would I start to assess that? Like, what are the things that you would look at to see? Do I feel like we're stuck? Do I feel like we're innovative? Do I feel like what are those elements?
I would look at so let's go under the assumption that you want to grow. As I think most people listening to us are hoping to improve their business. Is your revenue increasing and is your profit increasing? And if both of those two things are not increasing, something needs to change. And I think the way to make change is innovation, doing something better than you're currently doing it, right? And I think what Lars is saying has some merits in the sense of like one of the solutions to that may be interjecting new people with new ideas into your culture. I don't necessarily think that means someone else has to leave, especially if you're growing. But I think to Lars's point, that could lead to some people leaving because naturally you're going to do things a different way. I mean, I think we've all seen this with some of the acquisitions we've done, where sometimes employees stick around, sometimes they don't, right? The people that don't like to change aren't going to stick around when we come in and change things to be what we deem as better. So I do agree that as you grow, it's important to keep paying attention to bringing in new people that aren't just growing organically, because you bring someone in from a different company that's been even sometimes even different industries is really valuable. We've had someone join our company from outside the security industry as part of our leadership team, and it just the different perspective that he brings onto things has been really insightful. So I think that's just a pleasant or a good reminder to remember as you're growing to seek outside help. You want to promote from within as much as possible, but also if you do too much of that, you're gonna lead to a lot of groupthink and a lot of, well, we've done it this way forever, let's keep doing it this way. So I don't know where I'm going with that, but
Lars, are you working off of the kind of theory and statement that we should not think change is bad?
Not directly. That wasn't it. I can fill you in a bit of how this came to mind.
Sure.
So Matt, who I've mentioned many times, is my partner. He was with us for 8 years. Okay, we've been working together for almost a decade. I was laughing because we're going through a transition right now, looking at software and moving things, And at this time of year, I like going through process and seeing how everything has kind of been put together. The process that we follow today is the one that Matt designed 8 years ago. 8 years ago. How much technology has changed? How much innovation has changed? The product, the service, everything. Like, there has been a lot has happened in 8 years, and yet we're still doing things the same way as he came up with 8 years ago. And it made me realize, I was like, wow. And then I was having a conversation with one of our senior leaders, and, because I'm a believer that we're now at what I think is going to be the official tipping point towards electronics access control, cameras, just more specialized widgets as opposed to traditional locking, key, and mechanical hardware. So I was talking to one of my senior leaders, talking about how, how do we do this? How do we get our sales team onboarded? How do we get them trained so they're confident to sell this stuff? And, my senior leadership team was very good at pointing out all the things that would go wrong. And all the things on why this wouldn't work and all the problems that would happen. And it got me thinking that I was looking around the room, and my senior leadership team has all been around for, 10 years. Now, I'm not saying, okay, well, we got to fire everyone. No, but I am saying that, I've got to figure out a way. I think we've become stagnant. I've got to figure out a way to inject some new ideas.
Yeah.
And so,
but I don't think I don't think the only way to do that is by bringing in a new person. I think you as the leader can drive that and encourage that.
Yeah, and I think I can. I also think changing the pattern that we've developed over the last 10 years is going to be very challenging.
That is a fun statement that you just made. So sitting around the room and everybody telling you the reasons why it's not going to work. That would be my ideal situation and my ideal conversation. Because, and those are actually the people that I want to fold into elements of my leadership team. Figure out a way to have well balanced those people that are going to say this is going to be terrible, and let me tell you all the 1,000 reasons why it's going to be terrible.
So, Chad, now let me jump in there, because I would agree. I would agree. I feel the same way. What if you're not in that room? That's
the challenge. How do you put somebody in the room that is going to balance it? Right. So you need to have, I think, okay, if we were to advance that conversation, that statement is, how do you create a balanced leadership team, a balanced team period, right? So if it's a company of 10, if it's a company of 100, how do you create a balanced team or a leadership team that is going to have equal innovation, equal, concern,
risk, I think, is really the word that encompasses it all.
Averse, yeah, right.
Yes,
and that way they're going to tell you these are 1,000 things that are going to go wrong. Awesome. Thank you for pointing those out, because we're still going to do it, but now we can be a little better prepared of the things that are going to go wrong and start to account for those, because I didn't think of any of them, because, we've talked about this before. All I can think of is the upside. This is all going to be amazing because it was the best idea that I ever had. Never enter into the conversation.
That was my best idea today.
Never enter into the conversation around the things that could go poorly with it. So, getting those folks in the room and giving them a voice, because that actually creates a better overall product, a better overall. And so I think, if you were to go back to the top of the podcast where you're talking about, sometimes you see these companies that have these long tenured employees that are, and it can kind of feel stagnant because that's the way that we've always done things. There's probably a huge element in there of the fact that there's not enough balance in those conversations with people that are saying it can be done, and can the voices be balanced? Because oftentimes you get in those situations where somebody's been there for 25, 30 years and they're the loudest voice in the room that tells you that it can't be done. Well, that's what people are going to listen to, because they have the voice of wisdom, because they've been there a long time, and then everybody just kind of stops. Also, Winston just decided to come into the room.
Your dogs arrived. Yeah, I agree. And I think our industry, because I am talking about our industry specific, because our industry, generally speaking, is trained for worst case scenario. How do we prevent break-ins? How do we prevent the bad guys from doing bad things, right? That's how we're trained, and that's what we get into. So we're good at pointing out, things that can go wrong. And I guess my challenge is, I am the person that's okay. This is how it can go right, and we go through that. But I know our organization is I need to bring somebody in that's also like that, because to complete the story, we just added a new person to our senior leadership team. We were talking about the electronics access control, and I was talking about the margins and how it can be profitable and going through this. And the new guy was like, "Oh yeah, this makes a lot of sense." He's like, "Yeah, we can do this." And it kind of felt like the rest were all like, "Oh, well, this could go wrong. This could go wrong," which made me think of, okay, well, we added some new blood. So now it's just changed the dynamic. So that was kind of the backstory of where this all came from, because, turnover is bad. And I'm not sure I subscribe to that. High turnover, is bad. But having new blood injected is one way to do it. Changing the culture is another way. But I truly believe changing the culture is like a 5-year type of horizon, as opposed to bringing in someone new might be a couple months.
Yeah, and I think you kind of hit on something that's very interesting. There is, it's trying to craft those conversations with the balanced opinions of everyone's from a perspective. What this is what we want to do. Now, tell me why it would work, and then tell me why it wouldn't work. And the people that are going to have tried this before, they're going to tell you all the reasons that it can't work. And the folks that don't have that that scar tissue, or the previous failures, they're going to find the opportunistic way to solve the problem, because that's just what they do. And that's why it's really important to have that balance. It's a blast for me, for our whole organization. If we've talked about this before on this podcast, we have an all hands meeting every Wednesday morning. And so I get a full perspective of people that like to try new things and challenge the norm. And then I have a lot of people in that same room that want the consistency and the proven, and we tried that before and it didn't work. And so you get 50 voices together, and then you have to navigate it. But the value of it is, man, the more you embrace it, the more you make an opportunity for the people to speak up that do have those concerns, the better you can I guess tweak your process, or tweak your implementation so that it does work. But I think it does require, I can tell you this, it does require the patience to be able to get all of that information in. And I've seen people, even in our organization, that will pitch a new thing and get the rebuttal from everybody that is concerned and scared. And then it ultimately kind of shuts them down, because they don't have the ability to navigate that conversation with an entire group like that. So it does take I would say it does take a special person to be able to keep the conversation going on a balanced perspective without letting the loudest person in the room control the narrative, which is what I think you were talking about.
Yeah. So anyway, I thought this was an interesting thing to discuss, knowing that this is the beginning of the year and we're planning and looking at where to innovate. I think if we fast forward 52 weeks from now, what does AI look like in our industry? I'm not sure, but I don't believe this to be a flash in the pan. I don't believe electronic access control and cameras are going to be a flash in the pan. In fact, I think that's where this is going to start moving quicker as we get commoditized in these type of products, and it's not as cost prohibitive. I think integrating applications, I think integrating softwares, automating, gathering data, managing databases. I think this is all going to be blended into security at some point. And I think now is when we have to start building our teams that are going to be ready to take on some of this new challenge and new technology. And I think the vast majority of us, me personally, my team, would be one that is not ready for this right now. We're good at figuring out why it won't work. So it was just, I wanted to talk with you guys about it, and anyone that's listening, to get your perspective on what this is going to look like and how do we get ourselves prepared for what's coming.
So. Yeah, I think unfortunate part is at least our generation was not in a state of conversation when and you referenced it earlier, when the internet became a thing. We were all young kids at that point. I don't even know if Tony was born then. And so that was funny, Tony.
It was. Yeah. I laughed. I smirked. That's
Anyways, so we weren't at the table during the conversations when people were saying, "Oh, this internet thing is going to go away. Don't worry about it." Mm-hmm. We grew up in the evolution of the internet and how it's impacted us as a society now. AI is, as you said earlier, is that exact same thing right now. It is as equal of an impact as the internet was at its inception, and it will impact us at a far faster rate than the internet did. So it's not even a matter of, is this going to be a thing or not? It's how do you embrace it, impact it, and implement it inside your organization, because it will disrupt.
Yeah, it is going to magnify the effects of being innovative. The people that are not innovative are going to get further left behind, and the people that are innovating are going to get further ahead. Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I certainly know which side of that I want to be on.
Yeah,
right.
And so that's where preparation starts now. So
I agreed. Yeah, if you're at the beginning of 2026, which we are, and you haven't gone in and you yourself mess with any of the LLMs or started to think about AI agents or
download
any of those things,
ChatGPT on your phone and play around with it.
If you haven't done it to this point, you're well behind. So you better get on. And the one thing I've been doing, and I don't know about you guys, but I've been listening to a lot of podcasts on AI specifically, just better understanding prompts, better understanding implementation, where other people are using it, because I think the bounds are limitless right now, and it's such a powerful tool that we don't even quite understand how to utilize it. So trying to get outside of our normal topics, our normal fish bowls, and think about ways that we can bring it back into our organization is definitely something I would recommend as well.
Yeah. The ironic part is, if you don't know where to start, talk to it, ask it. Yeah. Hey, what can you do? When you turn on GPT, there's a voice command version. Say, all right, this is my first time using you. What do you recommend? Like, how do I learn how you work? And it will talk back and forth with you. It's it's really quite amazing. But
yeah,
it's a good idea.
I like it. Yeah. Speaking of AI, Tony has a topic for our next podcast.
You see, not on AI. Yeah, I was trying to think which topic I want to go with here. I know what topic Chad wants me to pick. But I see where you're going with that. Wow.
Tony's AI bot has not yet been interjected with humor, so we're still working on the prompts for that.
Yes.
Tony's AI bot is I want to talk about the idea of selling as OpEx, operating expense, selling solutions to customers using operating expense as opposed to a capital expense. I know this is something that Chad has recently done a lot of, and I think there's some valuable tips and tricks that we can learn from him. And I don't know if Lars has any experience with this, but I'm sure he'll pretend he does.
I have zero tricks. I have a few tips.
Yeah. So using OpEx to increase your sales.
Did you just say, I don't know if Lars does, but he'll pretend that he does?
Yeah.
Well, I'm glad you were able to join us for this podcast. Took you 58 minutes, but here you are. So tips and tricks on
increasing sales using selling as we'll fine tune it, but increasing sales through OpEx. I don't know. We'll get there.
Yeah, we'll workshop it a little bit, but ultimately discussing how do you sell to OpEx versus CapEx.
Yeah, and just some background on the differences and how you can use it to your benefit. So
that's exciting. In the meantime, Tony also wants you to leave comments below on this video or send us a message on LinkedIn around Q&A questions that you would like Tony to answer. He loves to answer questions. And so if the more questions that you provide, the better the episode will be.
Yeah. Love to ask him too. But
Chad Long in the Tooth, Land the Plane. Is there any other Unlock Bingo?
Henry Ford.
Yes, Faster Horses.
Faster Horse.
Thank you. Anything else we're missing? Tips and tricks.
Sauna.
We nailed. Oh, the sauna, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
it's far from cozy lately, let me tell you. It is a cold sauna these days up here in the great state of Minnesota.
Yeah.
I looked the other day, it was colder here than the furthest north city in the globe. Even Calgary was Calgary was 30 degrees warmer than us. I was like, what is going on here?
Which for most of us in the world would never think to look up that temperature, but Tony did to check to see the coldest place in the world.
Oh, I keep it saved on my phone to just try to, make me feel a little more cold, I guess.
But it was the other day, Tony sent us a weather
screenshot
reading. Yeah, screenshot of Minnesota. It was 1 degree.
Yeah.
Fahrenheit.
-8.
And it was going to -8, which is by far miserable. So thank you
Tune in next week for more riveting content about the temperature
weather
of Minnesota.
Well,
Chad,
it was funny
because
I looked up
misery, please.
Yeah, I looked at the weather in Calgary as well, and it was like 31 degrees Fahrenheit, which was about the same as Charlotte. And Tony just is this weird vortex of misery. Unlocked
Podcast.com is where you can find us. All the socials.
.com. It's Lars Johnston with a T. And then you can also see us on the YouTube channel as well. So make sure you search that up as well. Thank you for subscribing. Make sure you follow us. New episodes come out most Thursday mornings. And we will see you next time. And Winston says hello as well. We'll see you next time here on the Unlocked Podcast.